I think you're a great engineer, and I think you're a valuable asset to this city or whoever you join, and I appreciate everything that you've done. Paul has always had an open door with me, and I stop in his office all the time, he and Brian both. And I just want to say thank you. I didn't get a chance to do that last meeting, so.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, and I have truly enjoyed it, like I said at the last meeting, so thank you, Don.
You can still come to our meetings.
Yeah. All right. Excellent. Glutton for punishment. And you thought he was smart. There we go. Old business. We have the second reading of ordinance 562, which sets a fee of $6 times the population determined by the last federal census. Said amount to apply license issued for any application submitted after May 1, 2018.
I will make a motion to approve the second reading. I just did. Second. I approve it.
I have a motion from Hausman, a second from Parsons to approve second reading of ordinance 562, which establishes a liquor license fee. Questions or discussion?
So then, so it wouldn't be reevaluated then until the 10-year census? How do we do that?
Correct. Census takes place in 2020, and then it usually takes about a year or so to get the official count from the Census Department. So it'd be somewhere late 2020 to 2021 that the official number will change.
Other than, it's an ordinance, so you can always change your ordinance.
Yeah.
You can always change it.
We can always change it if you so desire.
It's going to go to this now,
It's
It's going to go to this now.
because that's our latest
Right.
population.
And our latest population number is?
8785.
I got mine on.
$6 is 52,710.
Thank you. And we have three of them.
We have
All right. Moving on. Golf course. I see Zane is in the audience. We got some summer staff.
Did we?
Oh, sorry. Yes, we did. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed. Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Oh, I wanted to have a special meeting for 5 minutes again.
Yeah.
Golf course, summer staff. We have quite a list.
Yes, you've got a list of summer staff, part-time, temporary staff out at the golf course for the summer, all of the current positions and their rates of hourly pay. This may be amended from time to time as we go through the summer as normal.
Are we at 100% positions filled? Last
Close.
time we weren't.
Close.
I think we had some maintenance people that weren't
Yep.
in
We're al-
line.
You know, we're always looking for maintenance
Okay.
folks as people come and go.
Yep.
Mayor and council, I would like to make a motion to change one of these. A little bit of background, as you know, our assistant pro position currently held by Andrew Bauer. That was kind of a new position that we opened up a couple of years ago, and as such, when we went into it, we really didn't have a defined role and expectations and understanding of kind of what the day-to-day activities would be, what the level of involvement in key areas would be. As such, I think we kind of started the wage potentially a little bit low now that we have, a couple of years experience of seeing what Andrew is involved in the day-to-day activities of the course. He has some critical and key functions out there as part of his assistant pro responsibilities, in addition to, just the daily role of the pro shop staff, which he does as well. But, some of his responsibilities are, he does a lot of the management and the coordinations of the outings, and the outings have become an increasing piece of the business out there, a very critical piece, and determine the financial success or failure of the golf course. The other thing he's been kind of taking on is leading and developing some of the junior golf programs, as well as, although he's not a true manager in terms of he doesn't have FTE reporting to him, he certainly is in a management role. He's training and directing some of the staff out there. At the end of the day, the expectations are pretty high in this role. The degree of professionalism is higher. As such, I think the wages should reflect a little bit better of that. As such, I will make a motion to approve this with an adjustment to Andrew Bauer's wages to $15 an hour for those reasons.
I would second that.
I have a motion from McInerney, second from Fish, to approve this list with change of wage to $15 per hour for Andrew Bauer, who works in the pro shop.
Zane, just want to make sure we give you at least a chance to speak up if you have any objections or concerns or thoughts, so.
Push the purple button there.
Okay, I guess I would definitely agree with that, and I appreciate the council, you know, making action there. Like I said, he does do a lot of work with our golf outings. Outings are becoming more and more bigger part of our business. I think we got 54 outings booked this year, so it's a couple more than last year. And we had a lot last year, so, and it does take a lot of people to pull off the outings, and Andrew does play a key role in that, so. I guess the other, regarding the staff, I don't know if, Brian, did you get my email regarding the community room staff, bussers?
Yeah, I talked to Carrie. She'll monitor those.
She's gonna
tips.
monitor them?
Yep.
Okay.
I shipped her the.
Because I know that a lot of those don't, you know, there's a lot of days that they don't,
Yep.
the tips aren't involved, so.
With those employees that are under the minimum wage, we have to take into account the tips that they may earn. So Carrie will monitor that each pay period. We've got a spreadsheet set up for to make sure that they get paid at least the minimum wage, hourly wage plus tips. If they don't get tips, they'd be bumped up to the minimum wage.
So we will, if they don't make the actual tip, we just make up the difference, is how it works? Okay.
Well, within the work week period.
Right, okay.
So Zane, for Andrew, he's working on getting his pro designation or whatever. What does that really entail? How far along is he?
I think he's got 2 to 3 years left. So there's like 3 levels in the PGA program, and I think he's on level 1 right now, and it can take anywhere from 3 to 7 years to complete it, basically. So it's quite a lot involved in getting it completed, so. And then when you're working quite a few hours in the summer, you got a small window in the winter time to go to Florida to get it completed, so.
Well, I appreciate you and John pushing this forward. I've felt that Andrew's been underpaid for a long time, so I'm happy that hopefully we're going to be able to help him out.
So I have a question, John. Zane, do you have an idea for the level of experience that Andrew has, what the range of pay should
Well,
be?
I actually called the PGA and was trying to get some compensation survey for assistant pros, but a lot of that, you know, you have to get the right data because there's different geographical positions in different states, and then you got public versus private versus semi-private, so I'm trying to get that information. I'm waiting for a call from the PGA of America, so
I'm
try to get
guessing,
some more information.
I'm guessing whatever numbers are out there, we're going to be startlingly low, given our geographical region and some of the golf courses around it.
But I think this is a, you know, good step for this year, and we'll see, evaluate after this year.
Because he doesn't get any benefits. Yeah.
Any other questions or discussion? Anything else?
No, just waiting for the weather to get a little better.
All right. 11:15 tomorrow, first day of spring. Official.
I heard snow tonight, so I'll end on that.
All right. With that being said, I have a motion and a second. All in favor of the list with that one change? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. I see the chief is in the back wall there. Anything else? Anything, police?
Here he comes. Uh-oh.
Okay,
Here he comes.
thumbs up.
Here he comes. Oh, yeah, that's true.
Okay, so for those that weren't here the other night, which includes most people out here, our new officer, Kyle Zegan, did take the reciprocity test, and it took a long time for it to come back. He was supposed to have gone off to the academy on the 12th or the 13th. If he hadn't passed that, well, their machine broke down that grades the test, and so they had to pull out a pencil and go through the list and correct it that way, and he passed with an 89, which was a very, very good score from my experience with it. And he took the test in an hour and a half, and they usually take about two and a half hours. So he was very confident, studied very hard for it, and that saves us, ultimately, it saves us 12 weeks of time in Pier. He'll still have to go to Pier for 1 week of reciprocity training that they do require, and that has been scheduled. It's down the road a little ways, but very, very happy with that, and he's out there and making stops and taking people to jail, so.
Good. What we wanna. All right, there you have it.
Some money. Yeah.
Yes.
Bacon, congratulations, yeah.
And of course, people have been saying that this is the safest place in South Dakota. There was a story on Kello.
That's right.
Yes, it was
And,
a news magazine.
So our thanks goes out to the good citizens of this community, because without that, we wouldn't be there. I'm not going to take credit for it. We play a part, but it's the community that really determines that ranking.
Yes, indeed, yes. That was a nice little email that I received.
One other item of note with the police department, I was just made aware of it today. Today marks Chief Cull's 40th anniversary in law enforcement.
As a police officer?
This is the completion of the 40 years. Tomorrow marks the date of my true anniversary, and it's the start of my 41st year.
You've got some good stories to tell.
I can guarantee you I will not complete 42 years.
Oh, good golly. Well, congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.
A long career. Anything else, please?
No, sir.
Well, let's move on to Park and Rec. We have our work report in front of us. I imagine they are also getting ready for the first day of spring tomorrow.
Hopefully they don't have to move snow.
Item B, we have a pay app number 6, Aspen Park Concession Restroom Building from RCM Service.
In the amount of $43,881.25.
I would make a motion to approve, Mayor.
Second.
I have a motion from Fish, second from Wells, to approve pay app number 6 on our Aspen Park Concession Restroom Project. Questions or discussion?
So, Paul, how far, are they working inside, or I haven't been out there lately?
Yeah, they are. They're continuing to work inside on the utilities, the flooring, the walls, some of the paint, and the grandstands, external work on the grandstands.
Any other questions or discussion?
Is there a grand opening ceremony scheduled already?
I don't think it's scheduled.
Okay.
Baseball's scheduled.
Okay.
They're gonna try to get the alumni back.
All right, very good. With that being said, I have a motion and a second to approve pay app number 6. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Yes, ma'am.
So Mayor, I had something that goes along with the ball field. So you'll recall that we had light poles out on Aspen on Field A. And so our staff was not, we don't have the equipment to take those down. So we contacted Sioux Valley Energy, and they, in cooperation with East River Electric, took those poles down for us gratis. So I guess if you know anybody,
Very nice of
Tim
them.
is the manager of Sioux Valley. I don't recall his last name at the moment, but anyway, Gary facilitated that through his role on the board. So we want to thank them for doing that. That saved baseball a bunch of money.
Yes, it did.
Very nice.
Yes, indeed. That was very nice of them to do that. I thought maybe we were going to put flowers on the light poles out in center field.
We're going to that now. That's the next thing.
Bring it on.
All right.
Bring it on.
Are we going to that now?
Let's go to it.
Okay, all right. So, we talked about this on Thursday, but Park Board would like the council to consider something else besides the flower pots on Split Rock. They like them, But what happens is by the time they get growing and show up out of the basket, we're at the end of the growing season. It costs us about $5,000 to buy the flowers and then to water them, because it takes 2 people a morning every day. So a half a FTE for the summer. So a couple of thoughts were, for transition time, we could just take the pots down and not do anything with them. Or we could do the flowers this year, we do have them in the budget, and get that going for this year, and then look for something different for next year. And we're on a time crunch, and so Park Board does not have an opportunity to make a recommendation. So they just asked me to bring those 2 ideas forward and see what you guys want to do.
Okay. So,
It's your baby.
this is my baby.
Round one.
Round one. All right, so first of all, I don't like how the planting has went with the flowers. I don't think they've been aggressive with it. They should have been planting the flowers back in like January, even December, to get them full enough to be able to plant, so they look good by June. That's always been a complaint of mine and the public. However, with that being said, people love the flowers. And I know it's been an issue with them not growing, but I'm not real happy with the Park Board for not coming to us sooner, for maybe coming to us in December or January instead of March, when now we're in a time crunch. And we could have had that time to be able to really talk about different ideas. My recommendation, and I was told by Devin that some of those flowers were already planted this year, and now at the last meeting I was told that they're not planted. And so we need to get them planted, and we need to get them going now, so we can get those back in the flower baskets. The flower baskets were a labor of love through a lot of our businesses in town, and also through our city work and everything else. And so I'm not somebody who wants to bring them down, because we've done a lot of work with them. I don't like the fact that our guys have to go up and water them, so I would be more in favor of fake flowers or something like that during the summertime than real flowers, because I do get nervous when I see them up watering. I will say that. So I'm all in favor of something like that. I'm not in favor of banners. I would be more in favor of something that would go inside the basket to make them look pretty. Because that was part of my Beautify Brandon when I first got on council, is do the flower baskets and something to make the city look good during the summertime, because we didn't have anything. We had nothing. So with that, I'm not in favor of banners. I really wish the Park Board would have came to us sooner to talk about it, and really would have put into action, be more aggressive about it that way. So with my recommendation, I still go with the flowers for the year. I'll make a motion to do the flowers for the year.
Our permanent,
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, we don't need them, and we've already
our
budgeted
fake
for it.
flower is not an option this year?
Joe's gonna come to our next Park Board meeting, and we'll talk about that.
That would be for next year, because the flowers are already bought and they're already in our budget, so, and they're already purchased and they're at Oak Ridge.
But the
Sorry, they're
flowers
already at-
themselves can't be much of the $5,000 expense. It's
No,
gotta be all
it's
FTEs.
2,500, and then with the guys watering at the time, that's what they're complaining about the most, is the guys taking the time to water it and taking the time away from the
It's a
parks.
half a day every
Yeah,
day.
it takes a half a day every day, and that's their major
Guy
problem
drive the
with it
truck
all.
and guy watering,
Yeah.
so it's
How
two
many
people.
flowers do we have? 2,500?
32?
34 baskets?
Yeah.
Is $2,500?
There's,
No, because it goes down,
34 is Blue Rock, and then it goes down Aspen, so there's
Down to
probably 42, 45.
yeah, it goes,
But how's that possibly $2,500? If they're seedlings, basically, when you're planting them. That should be like 10, 15 bucks a basket.
Devin.
He wasn't able to come. I don't know if that's what it is. A couple of clarifications. I don't think that we're complaining, Joe, about the watering. We're just a little concerned about the watering. And with the Water Conservation Subcommittee, I'm not quite sure what their position's going to be on the flowers. And just to back up, those flowers, remember all the businesses bought
Yeah, the
those
first year.
baskets?
That's right.
With the intent that that was going to continue, and then all of a sudden, that became a city expense. So I'm going to push back a little bit on that. I think it's a great idea, but I think that we got pulled into that when that wasn't going to be my understanding. So let's talk about it at Park Board, and we'll see what we come up with.
Yeah. So for now, so we're doing the flowers for now then.
As of right now, we are.
I'll let Debbie know.
Anything else, Park and Rec?
No, Mayor.
All right, moving on to administration. We have a summer intern from Rock Valley, it looks like, huh? Or Rock Rapids, excuse me, Rock Rapids, and goes to Brookings.
The SDSU, that's correct, Mayor.
As my brother-in-law says, the MIT of the Northern Plains.
So, we started interviews a couple months ago and had quite a list of applicants. We had about 15 applicants, of which one of those was an applicant that actually applied for the job last year and was in the top 3. So that gentleman is Marcus Hasselhoff, and he is here with us tonight in the back. I invited him to put a face with the name.
Yes.
And I know there was some discussion about as far as me resigning. I had actually discussed that with Marcus prior to him accepting or us offering him the position. And I was very impressed in his interview. He's very independent. A lot of the items that I showed him that we had our intern do last year, he was fully knowledgeable of that process. And I went through a list of some of the items that he would be working on this summer. And so I have full confidence that with some support from either myself or even Ryan from last year, I've discussed it with Ryan. He has been very open to having Marcus even give him a call if he has any questions. And that's our intern from last year, just to get an idea of what he had done and where to pick up so we can transition into that a little bit easier. Some of the things that I had shown Marcus that Ryan had done on my computer, he picked up right away. Ryan left a list of cheat sheets for me in case I wanted to dabble in it a little bit if I had time. And I had him read that, and he understood it very clear. So I have full confidence that he can pick up where we left off last summer. There is still plenty of work to be done on our GIS system. What Ryan had gotten completed last year was, I think Brian had kind of explained or touched base on that a little bit at the briefing meeting, the manholes, valve boxes, fire hydrants, and just enough to give you an idea of what he did for that presentation that he gave at the end of the summer. So where Marcus would pick up is where he left off. We need to continue with the database of all of our streetlights, and we'll work with Sioux Valley to do that. All of the connections, the connectivity to the manholes and the other attributes, as these guys call it, need to be input into the system along with the size of the pipe, potentially some manhole depths. And I plan on having Raleigh and Donovan and the guys work with Marcus on that to collect that information so that we have that all in our database as well. So there's still plenty of work for him to do, including development input of all of the new work that has been done since Ryan left. So with that, I would recommend hiring Marcus Hasselhoff for our summer intern.
And my apologies, sir, from saying you're from Rock Valley. That's like saying somebody's from Vermillion and Brookings.
Do you
Well,
have any-
welcome,
Are there
sir.
any other questions? Any questions for Marcus? We plan on doing something similar when he gets to the point where he has something that he can show you and do a presentation. He's fully confident and able to do that too, so.
Excellent.
make a motion to approve.
Second.
A motion from Hausman, second from Parsons to approve the hire of our summer intern. Questions or discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
One thing I'd like to add to that real quick is he's graduating from SDSU this May, and then he plans on going back to school, so he's going to continue with his experience here and actually develop that into a master's degree in GIS. And he wants to teach also, so this will be, I think, a good
Excellent.
opportunity for him
Excellent.
to continue with that.
When he goes back to school, will he go to the real university?
I don't think they offer this program down south, do they?
His head started.
All right. Yes, we did.
You're all good with me, Marcus.
Okay. All right, since Friday is Mr. Sano's last day, we need a city engineer. Now, in the last couple of weeks, we have discussed an RFP, correct?
Correct.
It is my feeling that we should proceed with that.
We certainly can. We can get one drafted and ready for you to review at the April 2nd council meeting, but in the meantime,
We still need an
we need
engineer.
a city engineer. We have a number of day-to-day activities that we need a city engineer for, primarily in the plating process. Without a city engineer, we would not be able to approve any plats. Because
Yes.
they are required to sign the plat. So, this proposed contract, there's the latest revision I laid on your table for you, runs through May 6th, April 30th. never mind.
April 30th.
March 24th to April 30th, until the reorganizational meeting, that first meeting in May.
Which would be May 7th.
So we
Correct.
actually need it to be 6.
Okay, we can do that.
So we
Yeah.
would need to change it. Yeah. I was
To
gonna
May
say, it does
6th.
not need to be through May.
To May 6th.
And I don't think you'll do an RFP. for-
We won't by that time either.
Right.
So even though May, the first meeting in May is when usually appointments are made, it may take longer to appoint a city engineer.
I would anticipate that it will.
I would anticipate that also. So,
I don't mean to throw a wrinkle in this, but I did discuss this with Brian a little bit earlier. If it were just a plating issue or even some minor plan reviews, it would be something that I could do if that was the main reason why we were going to appoint a city engineer. If it were just a plat review, that is a fairly simple process. Stockwell still does our review of our plans from a drainage standpoint. They obviously have some contracts that we're still working with them on. So if it were just for till May, going through the process of, what I've done is retrain some of the licensed land surveyors that submit their plats to us so that their signature block is very consistent. They would have to go through and change that, which isn't a big issue, and I just wanted to bring this up. It is a possibility. That if that were the case, I could still do that.
Are you saying still do that, perform that duty from your new position?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
That's not a conflict of interest?
No, they're a consultant engineer, and not that I'm aware of. I mean, Lisa could certainly look into it. I just wanted to throw that out there. It could potentially be an option.
And I appreciate that, Paul, but I think that opens us up to some possible liability if something else were to come up. That we would need a city engineer within that time frame, which certainly is a realistic, there's a realistic chance for that.
yes.
I would love to keep, in fact, why don't you just pull your resignation?
Yeah, pull your resignation.
But I just think that would leave us open for liability.
What are we talking about?
We're, at the most, we're probably
6 weeks.
RFPs in middle of May,
Looking back. at
maybe
the
1st of
discussions-
June.
No, well, if we get the RFPs in front of the council on the 2nd, we'd advertise probably the 11th and the 18th, take proposals towards the end of April, review them for a couple of weeks, make a recommendation. So very similar to what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Review committee, if you want to cut it down and do interviews, that adds a couple more, about 3 weeks to the process. So yeah, good April, May, end of May, first part of June.
That's what I was thinking, so we're talking 2, 6, 10 weeks, possibly.
So
And-
question, we still need to appoint a city engineer even though we're gonna plan on hiring one when
Correct.
Paul leaves?
Yep, just like, if, heaven forbid, the chief retires someday, we'll appoint an interim chief until his replacement is found. Just like if Christina would leave, we would appoint a temporary finance officer. We need a city engineer to sign official documents of the city.
So the RFP you're referring to, Mayor, is
For consulting,
okay.
After this time frame.
after this time frame, yes.
All right, do we need a motion
I got another question.
Yes.
So who negotiated these rates? Are these rack rates or?
I just incorporated what Stockholm standard rates were. I asked John, is this what your rates are? And is that what we should use? And he said, yes.
So in the past, have these never been negotiated or?
Mitch Mergen with Stockwell Engineers. Our rates are just our standard rates with all our clients, and those are in the past. It's always been our standard rates that we offer to you guys, and same as what our other clients are. So they're based on our overhead and things of that sort.
So I guess I'd like further clarification. I mean, I'm kind of, for the continuity purposes, all for keeping Paul in the position as much as we can. Is that, I understand if something comes up, but how urgent are we talking? I mean, is that something that we can address if something does come up, or I'm kind of at a loss here.
To me, what we're talking about having Stockwell step in and do isn't extensive. It's day-to-day activity, and to Blaine's point, I think having somebody that's not part of the city staff then continue to manage that while they're not employed by the city is a risk. And I'd be objective to that, as at the same time, I don't want to ask Paul to do this. He needs to be able to move on to his new position, get a fresh start, focus 100% on that, not look back. To me, just what we're talking about is insignificant's not the right word, but it's certainly not significant. So.
And this is just good through when you either, yeah, 3 weeks. I mean, the appointments are up again in May, and that may give you a little more time to work through an agreement for a city engineer, May 7th, of John Brown or somebody else. So I just think, the only thing I would say from my legal perspective is, John did it for, Stockwell's for how many years? And so for a transition period of a few weeks, I would say he knows what's going on. He's willing to do it. And then we're talking about 5 or 6 weeks here. And then that will give you some time to appoint somebody else or appoint him or make that decision. But we're going to need somebody effective the 24th so that we don't impede city business.
Yep.
So whoever that is, we need somebody.
And I agree with Lisa, because Stockwell, how many years have we even had them? I mean, forever, it seems like. So they know our city and they know it well. And it just, for me, I appreciate you offer, but I agree with John. I think we just need to make a fresh start and go right back to John Brown again and Stockwell Engineers. So go ahead, Tim.
Tim Wakefield, 2821 East Daybreak Circle. This contract, at least the one that was on the council packet, did not have any stipulations for maximum minimums, anticipated cost, budgetary, anything. It just has the hourly rates. One of the concerns that I had is understanding that Paul does, as Don said, go the extra mile and puts in a lot of extra effort. Just kind of curious what the anticipated cost would be, and if it would make sense to put any kind of limitations in there to safeguard the city for the amount of expense that there would be. And furthermore, I don't think we have any ongoing projects at this time, but typical practice in something like this, we have to be careful, because if we hire someone to do a city project, like a street, for example, Stockwell in this case would already be hired to do the construction administration. And one of the nice things about having our own engineers, he's able to audit that construction process, make sure that something wasn't missed. Not that it was done wrong, but something that was missed. It's nice to have a second set of eyes. Unfortunately, we didn't have the time or didn't take the time to put this out to see if anyone else was interested in that process or other firms. But I guess I'd like to see if we can make some amendments here to understand what the budgetary costs would be overall. Thank you.
I'm gonna make a motion.
Yeah, and I don't think we can, because you don't know how many plats are gonna come in and what's gonna be done between now and then, and that's what it's really all driven by, so.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve Stockwell. I'm sorry, John Brown as our engineer until, do I have to say until May?
I appoint, but that's fine.
Well, I appoint, whatever. What, I'm sorry. So March 24th until May 6th of 2018.
So I have one question, Mayor. Brian, we do have a project ongoing though with Mr. Oakland, do we not?
Correct, we've got a couple of projects in the works. Justin Oakland is working on the Fouth property development. He's also got the ponds project going on. The Development Foundation has the new industrial park that's moving forward. And then we've also got developers out there that have plats, whether it's the Bluffs or East Brandon. Now, there's no way that I can tell how many plats are going to come in.
Yes.
There's no way that I can tell how many people are going to come in with a drainage issue. And there's certainly no way, from the time that Paul submitted his resignation to today, to get a RFP process in place for May 7th.
Yep.
It just is not possible.
There's, Mayor, if I may, can we just keep this in perspective?
Yes.
We're talking about March 24th
Yeah.
through the first week of May.
Yep, exactly.
I mean, let's keep this in perspective.
Yep.
Let's just get this going.
There's nobody more qualified. He did it for what, 15 years prior to us actually having a city, and I mean, it's a no-brainer in my opinion.
Okay, so do we need a motion or appointment or what?
Well, I made,
She's made the motion, and somebody seconded it.
I think,
Yeah, Barb, second.
you already did.
So with that being said, we have a motion and a second to have John Brown be our interim city engineer. Discussion, more discussion. If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed.
Then I need a motion for the agreement for city engineer services that is before you as well.
I'll make a motion for the agreement of city engineer services that are before us,
We're changing the date.
With that change.
with the change to May 6th.
I have a motion. A motion from Hausman, second from McInerney for the contract. Is that what? With that being said, discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed. All right. Discussion on city engineer position.
I put the current job description on your council table today. That's the existing one that we have. Currently, Julie with HR and Paul are going over that. I'm reviewing it as well as part of our normal process. There may be some tweaks here and there, some things added, some things subtracted. Before, if the council determines that we should advertise for another city engineer, staff position, or go in a different direction, so.
I appreciate you getting this for us, Brian.
Yeah.
I want to take some time to digest this, and then I will call you. I'd like to set up a meeting with you to go over. I know we've had some some interim discussion, but I've got some questions that I have for you, because in all honesty, you're going to be hugely missed, Paul. But I think this position has morphed, and I think it truly does warrant some discussion on our part to make sure that we're not doing what's best for us, but we're doing what's best for the city of Brandon and the citizens in Brandon. And I think that's there are complexities to that that I think we need to address before we just put a rubber stamp on this and say, let's advertise it. So
I agree.
And I have a passion for this position. I mean, I worked really hard for this year after year budgetarily, between 6 and 8 years, trying to get this up in front of us. So I just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. I'm very proud that we finally have gotten to the point that we do have this position, because it took a lot of years to get there. I just want to make sure that we're continuing to do the right thing for the citizens of Brandon and for the efficiency of our city.
And I won't be here, but in general, just my comments are I agree. The way I'd encourage you folks to approach it is, don't approach it from, okay, this is what a typical city engineer does. Approach it from, this is what we need.
Right.
Design the job requirements around, this is what we need. Is it truly 100% engineer related, or is it kind of this quasi assistant city administrator role with engineering knowledge? But really approach it from what will benefit Brian and the city in total in terms of what value they can add, so.
In all honesty, I
agree.
truly believe that there's a development piece to this too that we're gonna need to discuss.
So in the meantime, if you have any comments or suggestions that you would like to see changed on this, let me know. And then we'll incorporate those into our discussion.
So
keep us
clarify
a-
for me, this position is not appointed?
It is.
It is.
appointed.
And can that ever be considered to be changed?
I think that is something that we should be happening in the discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Brian, can you keep us abreast of all the changes that are being discussed as they're submitted to you, just so
Yeah, I'll
we're
compile
not
them as
bamboozled at the last minute?
As suggestions come in, I'll keep them compiled, and as we move through the process, we'll get them out to you.
I just want to add to that real quick, the discussion that Blaine and I have had as well, just from a overall standpoint from the city engineer position in Brandon. When this job was developed, there were a lot of things that I was willing to want to get out in the community and meet with groups and sort of tie that community effective relationships or building those relationships, the communication factor on that. On a day-to-day basis, I'm maybe doing 5 to 10% actual engineering like John's referred to. If engineering and actually going through the work of designing a project or even the construction admin that Barb has referred to takes an absorbent amount of time, and it takes a lot of resources, a lot of staff, potentially an assistant city engineer, and then even some technicians. And that's where the consultants come into play, because they're way more efficient at doing that and going through those processes of designing a project or the risk involved with that as well, and accepting that risk. So I feel that this position is not that far off the work that's actually done from what is needed here. There is that other planning and potentially a development position down the road. But when I look through the job description, and I've done it several times over the last couple of days, and it's not too far off. I know it's evolved into something maybe a little different than what was originally intended, but I think you guys have a really good start.
And I guess I just want to throw this out there, just for the minutes. I mean, we knew that this position was a starting position when we developed it, and we knew that it would most likely morph. And the only way we can do that is to watch how things mature and to watch which direction the city's going and to watch where the work is truly needed. So, you know, I guess my position on this is let's just take the time to define where we're at, what we need before we post for another, before we put out for advertising for another position.
I agree. Any other discussion? Anything else, administration?
Yes, excuse me, Mayor. So we have a new appointee to Planning and Zoning, Jim
Yes.
Starzels. So we welcome him on board. But I did want to take an opportunity to thank Todd Stone for his many years of service on Planning and Zoning. He was a really valuable asset because he is an architect, and he served, and then didn't he?
He
was
went on
deployed-
deployment and then came back.
And then he came back.
And then was put back on.
And so I'm not sure how many years he served, but he served us
served
very well,
quite
and so I want
a
to make
few.
sure we thank him for that.
Yes, very much so. Moving on, item 12, streets. We have a maintenance work report in front of us. I'm sure he has not taken those plows off or put them back on. Future of city-owned lots on Palmer.
Somebody want to buy them from us?
Well, I gave you a aerial view of the two parcels that we obtained ownership on the south end of Palmer 2 years ago, roughly. Due to drainage issues, if you remember, those lots couldn't be, well, they could be built on, but with extensive modifications. So when we acquired those lots, we talked about selling off a portion of those lots at some point in the future after we determine how much of those parcels we want for drainage. And we haven't done that step yet. We haven't determined how much we want for drainage.
And they,
No, we own them. So what we would do is determine how much of those lots may be subject to flooding. And then we could sell off the remainder to the adjacent property owners if we wanted to.
So like for backup, like in a huge flood, or what, could we sell the whole lot and just have a drainage easement on a majority of it?
I'd prefer to own them, just for the fact that easements means that we can certainly go on that parcel and maintain that parcel. But a lot of times, maybe not the current owner, the present owner, but 5-10 years down the road, people forget there's an easement on there, and all of a sudden we show up to do maintenance work, and we start digging in somebody's yard. It does create some issues. So my recommendation is to maintain ownership of the parcels, sell off that part of the parcel that we don't need for drainage. And that would be based upon the 100-year flood.
And if you determine we can't sell off or we don't want to, we just own them both.
Correct.
But we maintain them, right? So we mow them.
Yep, we mow them.
I mean, we got costs associated.
Yep.
How much, or what's the timeline or the process then for determining how much we need?
We'll just need to sit down and take a look at it and figure out. I know that Heidi ran some flood elevation projections a while ago. I just need to take a look at it.
What's the danger of having the property owners own them and they assume the risk? What's the disadvantage there to us?
Well, it gets back to a lot of times people forget, and this is based upon my experience, people forget that there's an easement in their yard. So if we need to go in there and do some modifications to that easement, whether it's dig it deeper, put a berm in there, all of a sudden people are coming uncorked on us because, hey, you're digging in my yard,
Ring a bell?
even though it's our drainage easement.
Are these flat
I'm just
now,
saying.
Brian?
Or,
Relatively.
or they have a fence there, or they put,
Yep. Yep, all of a sudden
a
the
fire
fence
pit.
goes up and we have to tear a fence down.
yeah,
I'm just asking, does a path ring a bell? You know,
No, not at all.
that's all I'm saying.
you just. Yes, I would say proceed,
I would agree.
yeah.
No,
A consensus, is that what you want?
No, we'll give you maybe the next council meeting.
Yeah.
FYI.
What
Yep, proceed.
area we see as needing for the 100-year flood event.
From your
The 100-year
experience with,
event.
when we had to deal with it before, where does the water drain? Is it on the south end of these, the middle, the north end?
From what I remember, the 100-year rain event, it's all in the south. South parts.
I was just gonna say, we're not gonna have much luck, if it's on the north, and that's the
No.
piece we wanna keep.
No,
in getting-
no, it's all in the south, half to 2/3
Okay,
of the parcels.
okay.
Well, I think some people would probably be interested in, if you've got your house right next to that, you can extend your yard a little bit.
I know that some of them are already doing weed control, putting down fertilizer,
Yeah,
they like to put up trees to kind of block the noise from the highway, and
yes.
I don't think they want the whole thing to put a big building out there or anything
No.
like that, so.
I would say proceed with that. Anything else, streets? Raleigh's back there hiding behind the post. I assume you are. I figured that was coming up.
By the truckload.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Praying for no snow.
Yep.
So that's it, Mayor.
Okay, water and sewer, committee report first.
Yes.
So we discussed at our briefing meeting a little more of the specifics, but I'll run through it tonight. So at our last Water Development Committee meeting, it was mostly, we mostly discussed what the Conservation Subcommittee had been doing in their productive time. So we'll run through that. First of all, if you're not aware of this, there has been a subcommittee formed. It is a water conservation subcommittee. They've put a tremendous amount of work in so far. They've done a great job. Very, very happy with what they're doing and the results that they're getting. And they just wanted to present 3 general ideas to the council. or recommendations to the council, of which there are a lot of details to be ironed out throughout, both legal and logistical details to be ironed out in the coming days. But number one, they've got a recommendation to create a staged lawn watering program. This stage program would consist of 3 stages, a green, yellow, and a red. So stage 1 would be green, which is essentially what we're in now. Meaning you can water if it's an odd day, if your house number is an odd number, and vice versa. Stage 2 is the yellow, and we're talking about colors because we're presenting this as an idea of maybe we use colors to indicate what stage we're in, just to make it easily identifiable. Stage 2 being yellow, the cautionary stage, we're getting close to our capacity. So stage 2 would be in effect if the facility has exceeded 1.6 million gallons of water per day. At this point, the Conservation Subcommittee is recommending that we go to consumers go to a 1 day per week based on the last digit of the property owner's address. So if it's if your address ends in a 001, for example, you would water on Monday, and so on. There are other towns, including Sioux Falls, that do this in times of need. Stage 3 would be red. This would be if stage 2 has been exceeded. We've exceeded the 1.6 million gallons of water per day for 3 consecutive days. At this point, watering of yards would not be allowed until things settle back down. So that would be recommendation 1. Recommendation 2 would be to create an enforcement. We're talking about educating, enforcing, and incentivizing. Stage 2 would be enforcing. So currently, am I correct? It is a misdemeanor the way we have it legally worded. Is that correct?
No, it's a choice of either a misdemeanor or termination of water service.
Okay, I think we were misunderstood on that. I think we understood it as a misdemeanor. So I'll clarify that. So their recommendation was, if it is a misdemeanor, if you choose that route, that maybe that's a little too harsh, and we go to a fine system. Number one, they could create door hangers and utilize city employees to issue those, or maybe summer help. And that's where, again, there's some wrinkles that need to be ironed out. If this is a misdemeanor, could we utilize Mr. Hasselhoff to go enforce a fine? Well, maybe not if it's a misdemeanor. Maybe that needs to come from law enforcement. So if that was something that we want to look at changing, that is a recommendation of theirs. A second recommendation in the citations would be to create a fee schedule. So, $100 for the first violation, $200 for the second violation, $300 for the third violation. And then recommendation number 3 of them is to create, and again, I think this is something that we should probably get going on, is to create an annual water conservation budget. So the budget would include monies for, materials for bill stuffers or courtesy notices. Create a rebate program for sprinklers and toilets and rain detectors for your yard, that type of thing. They've talked about leak detection dye tablets that go in your toilet to let you know if your toilet's leaking or running. Low flow shower heads, that kind of thing. So a rebate program, I asked them, how much, what are you thinking as far as what kind of number do you want to put in place? And again, that's something that they're still collecting data on to try and figure out. Since we've never engaged in a rebate program, this is new to us, so we really don't know yet, and they're still gathering information. Overall, the Conservation Subcommittee is hoping for a reduction of 15% in usage, which if we could do that, and again, we're talking in the summer here because most of our usage comes from lawn watering. If we could do a 15% reduction based on toilets and showers and the rebate program and reducing our lawn watering, I think we would really be making some headway. Sioux Falls showed us numbers. They achieved numbers as high as 30%. If we could aim for 15 and achieve it, we would really be in a good position to get us through this RFP process. Some other things that they have done is come up with a slogan and a logo. They've got it narrowed down to several choices. I really wanted to show them, but I won't because they're not official yet. They don't have that decision made officially. And then the other thing they're looking at, included in the budget, is some promotional advertising materials, things to hand out to kids at the parades and things to put on display, like the kiosk in the back of the room. Maybe have some kiosks, as the chamber did, maybe have some kiosks set up in some of the businesses around just to help educate the public. So the overall plan is in educating the public would be utilizing social media, an email or a text alert system, which we've discussed on our website for the city of Brandon. The signs, the green, yellow, and red indicator signs that we could have staged around the city or incorporate them into our bills that we receive each month. Get the media involved, get kids involved, maybe a water conservation program in school, and again, the kiosks that we could utilize in some of the primary businesses around town. Maybe just create a little bit of a budget for that. It's not going to take a lot of money, I don't think, but the rebate program will probably be the beefiest of the money when it comes to their budget. But they are working on getting some numbers together. Their overall goal is essentially just create awareness, and throughout creating awareness, I think communication is the key. So that's the Water Conservation Committee. Again, recommendation 1 being create a staged lawn watering program. Recommendation 2 would be the enforcement side of things, creating courtesy notices and administrative citations for the program. And then recommendation 3 would be to create a budget for the Water Conservation Subcommittee. Aside from that, at our meeting, that was kind of the meat and potatoes of our meeting. We discussed a little bit about additional water sources in the interim until the RFP process is complete. We talked about maybe a well 8. I guess my theory behind trying to bring on well 7 or I should say well 7 or well 7A and well 8 this year. The last time we brought a well on board was, I think, 2000, which was well 6. So we've gone almost 20 years without bringing a well on board. I think we'd be rushing into things trying to bring 2 wells on in 1 year. I think that's maybe getting ahead of ourselves. The main reason for stepping back on well 8 right now is we want to incorporate that into the RFP process. That is what this was created for. If we start recommending that we move forward with well 7 or 7A and a well 8, I'm not sure what we're doing this RFP process for in the first place. So I think we need to let the process, and I understand it takes a little more time, and the first time or two it's going to be a little more time consuming maybe than normal, but in the end I think it's the right thing to do, and it's the way that most towns conduct the process, and I think we need to adhere to those principles. Well 6 is now rebuilt. For those of you who weren't here at the briefing meeting, well 6 for the most part has all new innards and is up and working, and they did a great job getting that working late at night and getting that done. Our next meeting is going to be regarding the Big Sioux Aquifer as a potential source, which again has been presented to us by engineering firms as a potential source for water. We're just going to kind of bone up on our knowledge there. After that, we are going to go to a less, we're going to try and meet less often for now. I don't think there's a whole lot that we have as a as a development committee to do until this RFP process is up and running. So I think that we're going to be shifting our schedule maybe once a month, maybe once every 6 weeks. The subcommittee, the Water Conservation Subcommittee, will remain strong, especially throughout summer, and the Water Development Committee will be in constant contact with each other through the summer to make sure that we're addressing any problems or needs. We just may not be meeting as often. So that's all I have.
Excellent. Did you get another volunteer to help on that committee to review the RFP?
Well, we've got Don and Chuck.
Okay.
Of the council.
Perfect.
And at our
Thank you,
next
gentlemen.
at our next committee, so it'll be this Wednesday, I've got a list of 4 individuals from our Water Development Committee that have volunteered to be on that review board, team or committee, however we want to word that. The recommendation from city was that we have someone from the Water Development Committee on this review team. So I've got 4 individuals that have volunteered, so we're going to vote on that on Wednesday. So I'll have that name come Wednesday.
Thank you. And again, thanks for your work.
Don, question?
Yes, sir.
Thank you and your water committee for what they're doing in the conservation part, but do you guys need funds now to start that conservation?
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about this at our briefing meeting, and we can talk more about it. So one of the things was to get some promotional advertising materials for the parade. So we're talking about a couple $100, maybe $500 at the most. I know they got some quotes from some companies, and we're talking about like 1,000 Frisbees and 1,000 magnets, to hand out to kids with a logo on it and maybe some information. For now, I've been told that the city is okay with just footing that bill, that we do not need to have a budget in place this week or necessarily this month. But again, this is where I'll rely on some of your expertise or some of your experience. I think we need to get it going soon, because I think this rebate program is going to be, it is going to be time consuming, and I think it's going to take some funds to back it. But the return on investment when it comes to the rebate program is substantial, and I think it's worth it.
All right. Thank you again. Sewer line project, 1300 block Rushmore.
Good evening again. We have an agreement in front of you for services for the Rushmore Drive project. And happy to answer any questions you have, but basically I want to just go through the proposal quick so you guys, I'm sure you understand it. But this is for design work and for part of the project we're going to be doing a topographic survey of the area to address the sewers and whatnot through there. But we have laid out with all the scope of work for final design and into construction documents, as well as construction administration in the field when we go to construction. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have at this time.
I don't have a question on this. I guess I have a question for Paul. So this proposal here from Stockwell, we call it the Rushmore Drive Sanitary Sewer Improvements. How does that relate to the letter that you wrote us on January 11th that talked about 3 options?
Instead of my left hand. Touche. The work that's being proposed, like I've explained before, I had several options of items that could be done to get the services from out from underneath the apartment complex and Clark Insurance. Those options were prior to us looking at video, and it was just what kind of options do we even have at this point to hopefully fix a problem. Again, we don't know what that problem is necessarily. It's services on a main line that looks fine. And if we could fix the problem by this proposed project, that'll be great. And I think
When you say the proposed project, you're talking about this Rushmore Drive sanitary sewer improvements.
Correct.
And then the 3 options that you laid out in the letter are in addition to that.
No, that was, I think one of those was to go to the Silver Circle project that we left off on to continue from the project from last year.
And so at one point you were coming up with a $500,000 in costs. What's that? Was that 322 plus what?
That was that first project, the Sylvan Circle proposed project to be constructed in 2019. The portion of that project that would extend down Teton to include the reroute of the sewer main and services is at approximately $322,000. That was my estimate of that project, based on projects that we've done in the past, street reconstruction, and then the sewer services from Teton west to the Clark Insurance Building and then south to Rushmore.
And so the other two options on this letter are two other options we could do in addition?
Those could be done without doing that Rushmore project.
Gotcha.
The Sylvan Circle project.
Just to give you a little bit of further, the 300 and some $1,000, I'm not sure what the three options were that were presented previously, but we've estimated this project to be about $425,000 in construction. That's within our proposal here. It does include going to basically where we left off with the Sylvan Drive or Sylvan Circle project last year and starting there and picking up the sewer and extending it from there.
So what would be the difference between your estimation and Paul's?
I don't know. I mean, we'd have to compare notes a little bit. I don't know why there would be a difference of that. Again, we're going off our experience with projects in the area as well. We'd have to get together to understand why we'd be off there.
Stockwell did a more detailed cost estimate. Mine was based on just a lineal footage of construction costs that we've done in the past, street construction, and then a sanitary sewer reconstruction.
So it wouldn't be uncommon there'd be $100,000 difference.
Well, I mean, that's a lot.
Theirs is more defined.
Yeah, I mean, there's a contingency in there as well.
Shut up again. Right hand.
It doesn't want me to talk to them.
Does the 425 include the admin fees?
No,
That's-
those were just the construction dollars.
Okay.
I like your numbers a lot better, Paul.
So it's a 425 plus a 75.
So it's $500,000. Yes.
The other thing too I would like to add with this project is that there are some unknowns. I mean, we're going underneath buildings to get sewer services, and that is concerning in general. I think mine is probably a best case scenario.
So the other unknown is if we can't get easements, we can't proceed with this.
That, and I think Stockwell may have even taken into consideration the time of the year that this is being bid, because it is a later construction. I mean, I did mine in January, granted, I think my estimate was pretty close, but there's some contingencies, some unknowns, and depending on if contractors want a project or not, we could be looking at the difference of 20 to 30% in construction costs.
It's optimism versus pessimism.
So I just want to make sure that Mr. and Mrs. Clark are here, that you understand if the city can't get easements from your neighbors, we may not be able to proceed.
The other item I want to refer to.
Okay.
Yeah, Adam Clark, 417 East Switchgrass Trail. So I'm not familiar with all the professional and the easements and all that, so I would assume that Stockwell addressed this at the last meeting. I think he did. Mr. Brown did, so I think he did address it, did he not, on the easements? So I think that's been already taken care of.
Well, I'd like to refer to that because I actually did listen to the briefing meeting discussion. That we're going to need an easement regardless. The sewer services, the way that they are, John said in the meeting that we were going to route the services out to the public right-of-way as much as possible. That's true. But the Pizza Ranch service comes to a manhole on the north side of Clark's building. The only way to get their sewer service out to the public right-of-way on their property is to run it through their property, through their parking lot, and disconnect it from this sewer main. This is a sewer main. It's a 6-inch line, which is fairly standard in this area. It's nothing different than what we've replaced before. Services come to a sewer main, and if we replace the sewer main, we replace the sewer main in the right-of-way and their service only to their property line. That's how we've proceeded with Sylvan Circle projects. Anything beyond that is the property owner's responsibility. If they have sewer service issues prior to us doing our construction, what we explain to them in the public meetings, or if we talk to a property owner prior to that, it's your duty to make sure that you're coordinating with the property owner at the time of construction if you have additional work that you would like to be completed while we're working on the project. It's convenient, it's efficient. They potentially get a better cost because our contractor's already there if they're willing to coordinate with them during construction. It's that simple. So if we can get these services on their property to the right-of-way without going through somebody else's property, it's possible. I don't see how that's possible here. I mean, it would cost the property owners a significant amount of money to reroute their services to the right-of-way, which, in my opinion, is not the city's responsibility because we can't get easements.
If I may, I mean, as we work through the design, we're always conscious of that. If there are any easements that we need to procure, I mean, we would be bringing that to your attention, you know, as we go through the design process. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't, but that's always part of the process, is establishing those easements and making sure that we identify them for you.
I'm just being realistic in the fact that if we can't get easements from the property owners, or if the property owners aren't going to pay for their service to go to the right-of-way, there is a chance that this project could be delayed.
That was my question to Adam and your wife, is did you understand that if the neighbors wouldn't give an easement, they may not be able to proceed?
As far as the easements, I don't know how that process works, okay? All I know is we got a problem over there, okay? We've been up here for 3 months talking about, we want to come to a resolution on this. And so, I'd leave it up to Stockwell to determine and work with the property owners on the easements. I don't have an answer for you on that. I wish I did.
How many easements are we talking about for the gentleman from Stockwell? I mean, how many business owners or homeowners are we talking about?
Well, you know, I'm not real familiar with this project. John's more familiar with it, but, you know, we don't know until we get in there and really do our survey and start laying things out, and we don't really know those answers until we really get into them. But again, you know, if we run into something where we feel that that's an easement that is going to delay the project, we would sure bring that to your attention as soon as we know that. It's really hard to predict some of those things at this stage. That's why we need to kind of get in there and start understanding the problem a little better.
We'd be looking at approximately up to four easements. The Clarks, the 2 apartment buildings to the east, and then potentially property owned by the Pizza Ranch.
If we're taking ownership of this line and it is a main line, currently that we are aware of, we haven't done a title search, there is no easement. So we have to get, when we put our main line, if we put it back in the same location, which Mitch is right, until they get into the design, you're not going to know. But where it currently sits, if that is the most logical location, that's what Brian's referring to, we're going to have to get easements from all those property owners. I just wanted to clarify real quick, Raleigh corrected me. I said the Pizza Ranch's service, I meant the Steakhouse's service. The Steakhouse's service comes off the north side of their building, goes east, and ties into a manhole on the north side of Clark's. They would have to get their service to the right-of-way, would have to run straight south. And I don't know if there's enough room there with the property anyway. But anyway, that's the only way we'd be able to get it to the right-of-way and not get an easement for that service.
I think what Councilman Parsons is just saying, is so that you understand, we've had projects before where we have not been able to negotiate an easement with a property owner, and they've been delayed for well over a year. So we can't just go in and take somebody's property necessarily, and because we want to put a line in right there. There's a lot of legalities behind it. So it's something we can try and get the easement from, but if they won't give us the easement, it could potentially delay the project and it not get done this year. So it's something that they got to figure out, but just so you understand, it involves other people's property rights, not just your business.
Understand, but the Sylvan Circle project, I mean, you stop, I mean, this is really connected into the Sylvan Circle project, so why would it, you said this year versus future years, or you,
We would have to get easements, and if they won't give us easements right when we need them, we can't go on with the project until we have the easement. And sometimes easements take a day to negotiate, and sometimes you
okay.
can't get
I
them
understand.
for 6
Yep.
months. And so I think
Yep.
he just wanted to make sure that you understood that they could authorize this, but it doesn't guarantee that it's going to happen, because we'll probably have to get some easements and.
understand?
Okay.
Yeah.
So do we need do we need a motion on this tonight? Just want to make sure.
Well, what the proposal there from Stockwell's is to design, bid, and provide inspection services for a street reconstruction, including sewer, water, and a street, starting from, if you look on page 30.
Yeah, from Rushmore.
Sylvan Circle, where we ended last year's Sylvan Circle project, to the west of Teton, down south on Teton to, well, not all the way to Rushmore.
No.
We would end somewhere around that middle apartment building.
Yep.
Because we don't know whether that sewer line is gonna go south of that apartment building or on the north side of that apartment building. And then it would continue down to the east of Clark's building into Rushmore, across Rushmore, and hook up somewhere either in the middle of Rushmore to the south on that, where the old car wash used to be.
And I just want to reiterate, and I understand where the council's coming from, but any further delay on this is going to make this a very, very expensive project, because we're going into the bidding season so late the way it is. So with that being said, I'm going to make a motion to accept Stockwell's.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion from Jones and multiple seconds, but I'll give Mr. Wells credit for the second on the sewer line project on 1300 block of Rushmore. Any other discussion?
I have another question.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Do we want this project to include that, was it the shut-off valve that Raleigh got estimates on? Is that the correct terminology?
Backflow valve.
Yeah.
Well, it currently does not include it, is that correct?
Right, it doesn't.
No.
Okay. Correct, yeah.
Right.
My question to Paul or this gentleman is, would that be the time to do that work at the time we're doing this whole project versus doing it now?
It would, but it's not standard on any other sewer projects that we do on a sewer service connection. When we put in new sewer, it's designed with a slope that is engineered correctly, the services are installed correctly. Again, we don't know what the problem is and why this is backing up, but we would anticipate that this project, if there was something wrong with that line, would resolve that. Just don't see that in the video.
So can we, I've spent a lot of time talking with these folks, with the Clarks and with the plumbing inspector and several other plumbers, as well as the engineering firm. And to me, it sounds like, and I understand we've already voted on this, but it sounds like it's.
Well, we haven't yet.
We haven't
yet.
done the full vote yet.
We just have a motion and a
This is true, we
second.
only have a motion, okay, sorry. But to me, it sounds like it's a combination of one or all of, the pipe being a couple inches smaller than it will be when it's reinstalled. The fact that it's going under a building, a business, which is subject to problems with the earth settling and that causing issues, as well as roots and that type of thing. It's an old clay pipe, so it's more prone to roots, that type of thing. So just from everybody that I have spoken with, I think that this will probably take care of the problem. My question with regards to the backflow valve, if we go ahead and go forward with this tonight, can we, or should we maybe continue jetting the pipes? And we're talking about being done in October, right? The end of October. So we still have a fair amount of time to get through. what can we do to help these folks? You know, I went out after this happened. I toured their business, and it is a problem. It's a health problem. They have tenants. It stinks. It's a mess. What can we do to continue helping them until we get to that point versus the backflow valve? Because as Paul said, that's not par for course, and I think we'd be setting ourselves up for issues with other residents or businesses. We'd be setting a precedent, and that'd be a tough situation. But is there something we can do to get us to the end of October?
City's already doing extensive maintenance on that line. We're jetting it all the way from Rushmore all the way to Sylvan Circle where they stopped the other project. We don't do that anywhere else in town. This line has been cleaned, I would guess, 10 to 15 times in the last 2 years. I haven't even been through parts of town in 10 years. So, as Paul said, I don't know what the problem is. Yes, I understand there's reason for it to back up, but I don't know what it is, so we will continue to do our extensive maintenance.
I just want to offer this as a possible option as well. If a property owner wants to take an additional step on their sewer service, that is their property, that's their option as well. If they wanted to purchase it,
install.
pay a contractor to potentially put it in, something of that sort. Like I said before, on any other project that we do in a residential area, if a property owner wants to take it beyond what we propose, that's their option to do it. They just have to pay for it, coordinate it with the contractor, and do that extra work.
Okay. All right. Yes.
I appreciate I guess the question I would have is it's not our sewage coming into our facility. This is an office building. So we're just trying to limit the exposure to our property, the public, and our employees in there. So we're just trying to take the liability off of the city. The city's been aware of it for 8 years, so we're just trying to help the city. The last thing we want is we don't want contractors in there and breaking them concrete. That is not the route we want to go. We'd rather not do that as long as the city takes ownership. If we continue to have problems in the next 8 months, will the city?
Just so the council understands, liability has not been established that the city is liable for any of the sewer backup. Now, in the past, or in the future. I mean, that's an argument a property owner can make, but there has been no liability established.
That was just a comment I wanted to make, so thank you. Either way, thank you.
Thank you. All right, I have a motion and a second for the sewer line project on 1300 Block Rushmore. With that being said, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Moving forward. Main and Holly sewer project update.
Speaking of easements.
Yes.
Hence why we talked easements.
As we move forward with the project, we'd set a couple of deadlines for the plans and all easements to be done. The first one was March 1st. We didn't hit that, then we extended it to March 8th. We're still waiting. One easement, I think, is agreed to in principle, and one easement isn't close. So with that in mind, I was not comfortable with continuing on with the project, delaying the bid date another week or two. We're talking 5.5 months, so if you look at the calendar, if we bid it later, we don't award the contract till May, June. Now all of a sudden, we're 5.5 months down the road, we're talking November. I get nervous with construction projects after the middle of October, if you remember the Halloween snowstorm, which doesn't happen often, thankfully. So at that point in time, last week, I made the call to delay the project until next year, which would give us time to obtain those easements that are necessary to get the work done according to our design standards.
I appreciate that, Brian. I will say from a council standpoint, though, I want updates on a regular basis on where we're at with that easement. Because in my opinion, we dropped the ball and we should have had that easement a long time ago.
Okay.
Does us not doing that this year help absorb any of the unplanned costs of this Rushmore?
No,
change? No.
no, we weren't planning on doing any of that out of reserves.
Yeah.
So neither one would be a cash basis, it would be a bond.
Bonded. Yep.
Yeah, 'cause they have one more plant this year.
Anything else? Water, sewer? Anything else for council?
I just want to clarify about that easement real quick, Blaine. There were other items that we had that were delayed as well, and that wasn't the only easement. We also had a lot of discussion about the plans, about Holly Boulevard and what we were going to do moving forward. We split the project up into a sanitary sewer project. We originally were supposed to have plans in the middle of January. We just got those final plans today. So there have been other things that have kind of set this project into what I would call a little bit of a tailspin. When we start talking about easements, especially when it comes to a commercial property like the business that we're trying to get it from, they have legal representation as well. Minimum, we should be looking at, when we start a project like this, I agree, we should have been starting easements back in probably July of last year to get that easement established.
Between construction easements and permanent easements, though, we're talking two different things. And, you know, I've kept a close eye on the timetable on what we've been doing with the easements on this. And I just feel as a city, we dropped the ball at going after some of these easements when we should have to make this project timely.
I don't disagree with
And
that.
that's my
Yep.
opinion.
Yeah, we should start 6 to 8 months before we are going to bid a project. If we want our bid date to be January, February, we should be starting to get those easements from these businesses, like I said, in July at the latest.
Thank you for the clarification. I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
A motion from Hausman, second from Jones for adjournment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?